All right, we're ready for chapter 7, Basics of Biblical Hebrew, chapter 7, which is adjectives. We will uh, we'll start off with modern phrases, and then we'll go to the workbook, see if anybody's got any questions on the workbook, and we'll go over the um, translations since the answer key does not have that, have those. And then we'll get into chapter 7, adjectives, and go over the vocabulary. So that's what's on the table for tonight. Modern phrases, this is to say, how are you? At least that's how it's used. The words themselves means what's your peace or what's your welfare. Um, the interrogative here, ma, is what. You just think, I don't know, a child saying, what, ma? Mother calls something, what, ma? Anyway, ma is what. And then you can see shalom here, shalom. And then the last piece there, that's called the pronominal suffix, and that's the second person masculine singular. This one is second person feminine singular. We'll be learning more about those in coming chapters, but let's get some of this back out of the way again. So if you're talking to a man, one man, you'd say, Ma shlomcha, Ma shlomcha. Notice that you have a shva here, it's vocal, but you can see how little sound it gets. Ma shlomcha, Ma shlomcha. So that's basically saying, how are you? That's the way to use it. If you're talking to a woman, one person, you'd say, Ma shlomech, Ma shlomech. And that's basically asking, how are you? Um, and if you're talking to like a group of people or more than one man, you'd say, Ma shlomchem. But again, we'll learn that when we get to pronominal suffixes. Now, if somebody says that to you, you meet somebody and you say shalom, and say they say ma shalomcha, or to a woman they say ma shalomech. How do you respond to that? Well, one way, if you're doing really really well, here's tov ma'od todah. Tov is good. I believe that's one of our since we're looking at adjectives, that's in the vocabulary list. Ma'od is also, I think, in the vocabulary list. Ma'od means very, and then todah means thanks or thank you. So good, very, thank you, or just very good, thank you. Tov ma'od todah, very good, thank you. Or if you're just doing good but not very good, you just say tov todah, good, thank you, tov todah. And if you're not even doing all that well and you want to be honest about it, you can say beseder, beseder. Okay, doing okay. And if you're really not even doing okay, you can say lo tov, lo tov. No, not good, not good. So, mashlamcha to a man, mashlamech to a woman. And then if somebody says that to you, you can say tov ma'od todah, very good, thank you. Or you can say tov todah, good, thank you. Or you can say beseder, okay, or lo tov, not good. Okay, any questions on the workbook? This would be for chapter 6, the prepositions. Okay, I hear none, so we will go ahead and look at the translations for for exercise 6 on page 24. And so the first one, we have Batok, that's in the midst, and then Ha Sadeh is the field, in the midst of the field. And then the next one, Babait U Vashat Sadeh, in the house and in the field. Notice that we have the under babait, under the first bait, we've got the patak, and then we have a dagesh in the bait, the next bet there. So it's the in the house. And then we look at the in the field, we have ba, but or va has the patak and the dagesh is in the scene. And so it contains the article as well. So we have the article in both those, in the house and in the field. Number three, mitok et anan, from uh, the me with the dagesh and the tav, that's means from. Tok is midst, so this is from the midst of the cloud. The he on the front of anan is the article, from the midst of the cloud. Number four, milifne, that could be from to the face of, but it's when you see that, it's going to be from before, and then Yahweh, from before Yahweh. And then, or you can say from before the Lord, or some people say from before Adonai, but it's the name Yahweh there. And then number five, we have mean, and now it's in number 4 and 3, it was connected to the word. Now it's separated by a makef. So we have mean, from, ha'olam, the forever. Ad means as far as or until, and then we have ha'olam again. So from the forever, as far as the forever, or for better English, we might say from eternity until eternity. Any questions? Right, then we will move on to a review of terms before we actually start talking about adjectives here. A noun, when we covered nouns, that was in chapter 4. It's person, place, thing, or idea. We talked about inflection. That's a change to a word. It's the form of a word. Because we're going to be talking about, even though we're talking about adjectives, we're going to be looking at nouns, we're going to be looking at inflection. So inflection is when a word changes in its form, and then definite means it's referring to something specific, and there are several ways of something being definite. We'll study that more in an upcoming chapter, but right now we're just mostly going to be looking at the article. So a noun, person, place, or thing. A noun can have gender, which is going to be masculine, feminine, or common. Common means it's like ani, that which means I. It doesn't matter whether you're a man or a woman, you still say ani. You say it the same way, I. So that would be common. But when we said mashlamcha or mashlamech, that's masculine and feminine forms for how are you. So they can have gender, masculine, feminine, or common, and then also number, which can be singular or plural, or in Hebrew, dual as well, dual, meaning two of them, like a pair of oxen, or two eyes, or two ears, or that sort of thing. So with that little bit of review, let's jump into chapter 7 for Hebrew adjectives. Learning objectives, we want to understand English and Hebrew adjectives. They're, as far as the way they function, is very similar. We want to learn the forms of Hebrew adjectives. We want to be able to identify which word an adjective is modifying. And we need to be able to identify how an adjective is functioning in a sentence. And then it's not really related to adjectives at all. It's just another topic. We're going to look at the directional hey. But there's not that much to that. So we'll throw it all in together. So let's take a look at English and Hebrew adjectives. What are adjectives? They modify. They tell you something about a noun or a pronoun or another adjective. For example, the bright red Bible belongs to him. Red describes the Bible, and bright describes the red. Bright describes red, red describes Bible, and we read it this way, the bright red Bible. What we'll find when we read Hebrew is that you're going to find that even though we're reading from right to left, it's going to be in the same order, Bible, red, bright. But we read in English, we're reading left to right, and so it's bright, red, Bible. So the word order is going to be the same, but we're reading in opposite direction. In English, we use adjectives 3 ways, and the same is also true for Hebrew. Just a spoiler alert there. Attributive, it gives the attribute of a noun. So we say the wise man, it's telling us something about the man, and that is that he's wise. That's the adjective, the wise man. That's attributive because it's telling us something It's describing something about the man. There's also the predicative use of the adjective, and that's telling us something about the noun. And so we can say the man is wise. The man is still the noun, the subject. Wise is still an adjective, but now we have is. We have a to be verb in there. It's telling us something about the man. This describes the man. First one describes the man. The second one tells us something about the man. And then substantive is in the place of the noun, like the wise. Um, the wise would not choose to do something like that. So you're using it, it's an adjective, but you're using it as a noun. And, you may be familiar with the movie, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Those are all adjectives, but they're all being used as nouns. When it says Jesus was raised from the dead ones, the dead is an adjective. And sometimes it'll just refer to the dead ones, the dead, and that's substantive. Hebrew adjectives differ in form from English. They have the same function as English, but they differ in form from English. English adjectives do not change form when gender changes. We have the wise man and the wise woman. Wise looks exactly the same. There's nothing about this wise to distinguish this wise. There's nothing about this that says this one's masculine, this one's feminine. We don't have anything like that in English. It looks exactly the same. And English adjectives do not change with number. We can have the wise men, plural, wise women, plural, but wise, 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 wise looks the same. It never changes. We have to get the idea of gender and number from the noun, not from the adjective. And that's the way it is with all English. Well, almost, I'm going to say almost all English adjectives. So next, we're going to look at the forms of Hebrew adjectives. There's absolutely nothing new to learn here. English adjectives do not inflect. Okay, this, again, a review here. English adjectives do not inflect for gender. So whether it's a wise man or a wise woman, it looks exactly the same. However, Hebrew adjectives do inflect for gender. So we have a wise man, we have ish chachma. There's no article here. Well, and that's a guttural, so it would reject the dagesh. So that's why I make this a comment over here. So we have compensatory lengthening right there. We ish. There's no article, so this is indefinite, not definite. So a wise man. Notice there's nothing on the front or the back of this, nothing on the front or the back of that. That's masculine. Both are masculine. Okay, and then we have a wise woman. We have, let's get rid of some of that. Then we get Isha, that's feminine. Chachama, Isha, Chachama, they both have feminine forms. And so the noun has feminine form, the adjective has feminine form. For masculine, they're both masculine in form. So Hebrew adjectives inflect for gender. English adjectives do not inflect for number. We talked about that. A wise man or wise men, it doesn't change it at all. However, Hebrew adjectives do inflect for number. So a wise man, ish chacham, or wise men, anashim chachamim. We see the plural masculine ending here on both of those. Of course, anashim is always the plural form of man, ish. It's irregular in its form. However, when it comes to adjectives, we either don't have anything on it for the singular, or we have the plural endings on both the noun and the adjective. So Hebrew adjectives inflect for number. English adjectives do not inflect for definiteness. So a wise man, the wise man, wise looks exactly the same either way. Whoops. Oh yeah, that's okay. Hebrew adjectives, they do inflect for definiteness. So a wise man, there's no article on the front. There's no article on the front of the noun or the adjective. A wise man, ish chachma. The wise man, we have the article, ha, ish, and he, chachma. The wise man, the wise one. But we would just translate it or say it, the wise man. But that's woodenly, the man, the wise one, because these are the definite articles. And so it changes form. There's the singular masculine without an article, and here's singular masculine with an article. So we do have the definiteness connected to the Hebrew adjective. Hebrew adjectives inflect for gender, number, and definiteness. And so, like I said, there's not anything new to learn here because it's just like the nouns. When you have a masculine singular, there's no ending on it. Chachma, chachma, or I mean, sorry, chacham, chacham is the singular. And if it's plural, chachamim, chachamim. We have the plural ending on it. Just the way that same as a noun, you put another noun in there. You put Seuss in here, and it'd just be Seuss. Or then this would be Seuss-im for the plural. But it's just like nouns, just like nouns. So masculine singular, nothing's added to it. Masculine plural, you have the im ending. For feminine, you have the a ending, feminine singular. Chachama, or you have chachamot for the ot ending for the feminine plural. So those are exactly the same as adjectives. So you don't have to learn a bunch of new endings. They're use the same ones. Dual nouns, however, they just take the plural adjective. I've got a slide of that too. Changing it from wise to good, we still see the same thing. We have tov, that's masculine singular. Tovim, masculine plural. Tova, feminine singular. Tovot, feminine plural. Okay, and then dual nouns take plural adjectives. An example is from Isaiah 42:7. Einaim, there's I'm, that patak, yod with a hirik and the mem there. That's why is it dual? Because we have two eyes, einaim. But the adjective, wrote, it's just the plural, feminine plural. It's feminine plural because eyes is feminine. You don't really notice this so much in the dual form here, but the adjective always tells you the truth. If it uses a feminine ending, it is a feminine noun, even if it doesn't look like it. So that's eyes, dual eyes, blind ones, or blind eyes. All right, next up, we're going to look at identifying which word an adjective is modifying. In English, we pretty much go by placement in the sentence. In Hebrew, we'll look at placement, but we have more than that to go by. So Hebrew adjectives, again, review, inflect for gender, number, and definiteness. The one thing we want to look for, too, is the definiteness, because that's going to tell us how the adjective is being used as well. Okay, so Hebrew adjectives agree with the nouns they modify in gender and number. In other words, a Hebrew adjective will be the same gender and number as the noun it modifies. That's how you can tell which adjective goes with which noun. They're going to agree in gender and number. We'll look at definiteness here in just a little bit. So we have a wise man. Okay, there's no article on the front, either of these. It's just ish, chacham, ish, chacham, a wise man. a wise woman. Isha chachama. We have the feminine endings on both. Okay, a wise woman. Anashim chachamim. Men, plural, wise ones, wise men. And then when it comes to wise women, this is going to look a little different to us. Again, Hebrew adjectives agree with the nouns they modify in gender and number. The adjective always has the right ending. The adjective always tells you the truth about whether it's feminine or not. It's never irregular. So you take an irregular word like women, Isha, woman, in plural is nashim. And nashim looks like it might be masculine plural, because this is irregular, but it's not. The adjective is always going to tell you the truth. So we have nashim hachamot. They're both plural. And even though the nashim doesn't look feminine, the adjective tells us for sure, whoops, over here, that it is feminine. So nashim chachamot, wise women. It's important to remember that the adjective always tells the truth regarding gender. There are some other things, the demonstratives like this, zeh and zot. There's other things that will tell us the truth too. But that's how come, well, how do they know back in the, was it chapter 4 when we were looking at nouns and they said, well, Evan is feminine, even though it looks like it's masculine. There's nothing added to the back of it. There's no hey, comets hey at the end to tell you that it's feminine. How do they know? Well, it's because every time you ever see a stone modified by an adjective, gedolah. Evan, gedolah. Evan is stone, gedolah is great. There we have there's too many red here. We have the comets hey ending, telling us that that's a large stone, a great stone. And the adjective shows that it's feminine, even though the noun doesn't look like it. Ha'ir, the city, the city. The city looks like it's masculine because there's nothing behind it. But then we come to the adjective, ha'gedolah, it's still great. So we have the feminine ending here. And it matches, notice we have the city, the great one. So it's just the great city. So that's an attributive adjective. Telling us something about the city, the great one. But you notice that even though this city doesn't look masculine, the adjective is going to tell us the truth. And the same way with land. Land doesn't look like it's feminine, but it is, because if you have the good land or a good land, we don't have any articles here. We have the feminine ending over here, tovah, eretz tovah. And that's how we know that these nouns are masculine. Are feminine, even though they look masculine. So on the flip side of that, we're looking at feminine nouns look masculine, but if we take avot, is fathers, it's another one of the irregular ones, just like nashim that we looked at a bit ago for women. Avot is fathers, and it looks like it's feminine with that ot ending, but it's irregular, it's fathers. But when we get like good fathers, tovim, the adjective is going to tell us the truth. We're going to see that masculine plural ending on it. So good fathers, or fathers, good ones, good fathers. All right. And we need to identify how an adjective is functioning in a sentence. I've already mentioned a couple of them just in passing here. There's three main functions of adjectives, and it's just like in English. So also in Hebrew, there's attributive, the wise man. It tells us an attribute of the man. Okay, the man is the noun, and the fact that he's wise, that's telling us something about him. Okay, so that's the attributive. Then there's the predicate, and that's going to say something about him. The man is wise. We have a to be verb in here, is. We still have the noun man, and wise is still an adjective, but it's saying the man is wise. That's predicate. And of course, predicate is an action part of a statement, or clause, or sentence. And then the third one is substantive, just the wise, the wise. Like I said earlier, the good, the bad, the ugly. You just take an adjective and you treat it like a noun. So those are the ways we use adjectives in English, and that is also the way we use them in Hebrew. Attributive, predicative, and substantive. So we need to be able to figure out what are we looking at. We're reading along, we see the adjective, we need to figure out how it's being used so we know how to translate it properly. So attributive tells you something, tells you the attributes of the nouns they modify. The wise man helped the foolish man. We have the wise man. Whoops. We have the wise man tells us something about a man who helped. Then there's something about the other man, the foolish man. The adjectives tell us about the people involved. English puts attributive adjectives before the noun, a wise man. So we have the indefinite article, then we have the adjective, and then we have the noun. So English puts attributive adjectives before the noun. Hebrew puts the attributive adjectives after the noun, and we've seen that in the examples that we've had so far. So here's ish chacham, a man, a wise one, or a wise man. But the adjective chacham follows. Of course, we're reading right to left, right? I mean, correct. So ish chacham, a wise man, telling us something about the man, and it comes after. And that's, I was telling you a little bit about that before. We say a wise man, and we're reading this way. And if you're still going this way, we have a wise man if you're reading from left to right. But in Hebrew, we're going the opposite direction, but the word order is the same. You know, here's the noun, here's the adjective, here's the noun, here's the adjective. They're in the same positions here, but of course, we're going the opposite direction. Okay, attributive English often uses the. If it's going to be definite, it uses the. It is before the English often uses the before an attributive adjective to indicate the definiteness. So we'll say the wise man. We don't say the man wise or wise the man or something else. We use but the. We give the article first and then the adjective and then the noun. Hebrew adjectives, attributive adjectives, agree with the noun that they modify indefiniteness. I mentioned we looked at gender and number earlier, but now for attributive, we're going to look at definiteness. And so we have the article and the article, ha'ish and he, chacham. Both of these have articles, so they agree in definiteness. So this be the man, the wise one, or just the wise man, the wise man. Hebrew attributive adjectives follow the nouns they modify, and they agree in gender, number, and definiteness. For attributive adjectives, all right? So we have Isha, Kachama, that's feminine. So a woman, a wise one. So a wise woman. Notice that the adjective comes after the noun. And notice that neither of them have an article. Yeah, we're going to move some of that now. Now we have ha-anashim. We have an article. Ha-chachamim. We have an article. We don't have a dagesh because the aleph is a guttural and the chet is an article, is a guttural. So the article doesn't have the dagesh following it. But they agree. They both have articles. They both are plural, masculine plural. And so they agree in gender, number, and definiteness. Okay, the second of the three functions of the adjective, predicate. Predicate is a part of the sentence that comes grammatically after the subject and its modifiers. Okay, the man is wise. Article, the subject, the noun is, there's our predicate, and then wise is our adjective. The man is wise. And so about lying justifies the subject from the verb and the adjective. The old gray-haired man is 70 years old today. That is not talking about me. I'm sure somewhere in the world today there is an old gray-haired man who is 70 years old today. That's not the point. The point is the old gray-haired man is the subject, and then we say something about him. The predicate is he is. That old gray-haired man is 70 years old today. English usually puts the predicate adjectives after the noun and a to be verb. So the man is wise. So the adjective follows. Instead of saying the wise man, wise would fit in before man. But when it's a predicate position, we're saying something about it. The man is wise, so it follows. Hebrew usually puts, and I'm going to say most of the time, well, it's kind of the same as usually, puts the predicate adjectives before the noun. However, sometimes they can show up after, and most of the time there's not going to be a to be verb, but we have to recognize it by its position and also the relationship of definiteness. We'll look into that more fully. So here we have ha'ish, so the man, but there's no article in front of chacham. And so they do not match in definiteness. The man is definite. The adjective is indefinite. And so that's going to say the man is wise. We have to supply is in this case. Now, this is more of the exception in that we have the adjective following the noun. But it's still obvious to us that it is a predicate because it does not match. We don't have an article with both of these. They don't match in definiteness. This is the way you would expect to see it. Chacham ha'ish. Again, we have the article with the man. We do not have an article with chacham. And so it's still saying the man is wise. The man is wise. But oftentimes the adjective comes in front of the noun. If it's attributive, what we looked at before, it's always going to come after. It's always going to come after the noun. Hebrew predicate adjectives agree with the nouns they modify in gender and number. They are never definite. And that's a good indicator for a predicate adjective. They're never definite. So here we have ha'ish. I'm sorry, ha'isha. So this is feminine, singular. And then kachama is still feminine, singular. The noun is definite. The adjective is not definite. So this is saying the woman is wise. We have to supply is. Okay, and then I need to move that out of the way. Then we have chachamim, we have masculine plural ending. Ha, anashim. There's the masculine plural ending. However, we do have the article here. We do not have the article here. So that's saying the men are wise. And since it's plural, we say are instead of is, obviously. So there's no article in front of the adjective. When the adjective follows a noun and neither the noun nor the adjective is definite, like isha, kakama, now is that saying a woman is wise? Or is that saying a wise woman? The adjective may be attributive or predicate. Rely on context for translation in those cases to see what makes sense with the rest of the context, to know whether it's saying a woman is wise or just saying a wise woman. might want to look to see if there's another verb in the clause or not. And then you can get a determination. I mean, you're not going to have probably the two different verbs in there. It's going to obviously it's going to be like a subject, or it's going to be like a direct object or something like that. And so then you can figure out whether it's making a statement about the woman or whether it's identifying a characteristic, an attribute of the woman. Okay, so we had the three main functions of the adjectives. We looked at attributive and we looked at predicate. The last one is substantive. A substantive article, I'm sorry, a substantive adjective is used in place of a noun. We talked about the good, the bad, the good, the bad, the ugly. The use gives the adjective substance. It's used as a noun. Let the wise hear. It doesn't say wise men or wise women or wise child or whatever. It's just the wise. That's the substantive use. And so that would be yishma, which looks like he will hear, but it's adjective, so it's going to be let him hear, and then this will be a wise one. Let the wise hear. So just reviewing what we've covered in attributive, when the adjective directly modifies the noun, so we say the good horse or the red Bible, good being the adjective, red being the adjective. It will come after the noun and agree with the noun in gender, number, definiteness. So we have a horse, a good one, which is a good horse, or we have the horse, the good one. It is the good horse. And then for the predicate, we have to supply a to be verb. It can precede or follow the noun and agree with the noun in gender, number, but not in definiteness. The predicate the predicate use never has the definite article. So we have the horse is good. The horse is good. There's an article, no article in front of the adjective. Or if the adjective comes first before the noun, good, the horse, it's saying the horse is good. The horse is good. Now we have tov sus. You say, well, how do you know the difference? Well, it's coming before the noun, and so that's going to be predicate. It's still saying a horse. There's no the in it. A horse is good. And then sus tov could go either way because the adjective is following the noun, follows the noun. It could be saying a horse, a good one, or it could be saying a horse is good. And that's the one where you have to go by context to know how to determine that. Sus tov. And that substantive, the adjective is used in place of a noun. So in that case, there is no noun to modify. So there's nothing about coming before or coming after a noun or agreeing with a noun and gender number. That none of that is an issue. You just have an adjective, chacham, a wise one. Hech chacham, the wise one. This is the article. Yeah. So I have two flow charts. You can pick whichever one you want to use. It really just pick the one that works best with the way you think. So the first flow chart here says, does the adjective follow the noun and match the noun in gender, number, and definiteness? If that is the case, if all of these are true, it follows the noun, it matches gender, number, and definiteness, then it's attributive. And if one of these things is not right, well, let's say it's not definite, doesn't match in definiteness, the next question, is there a noun? Well, if there is not a noun, it's going to be a substantive. If there is a noun, then it's predicative, and you have to supply the word is or are or something like that to make it into a sentence. So that's one flow chart. It takes one. Both flow charts are going to cover the same information. It just depends on how you want to think about it. What do you want to look for first? So for the this is looking at the attributive adjective first. Does it follow the noun? Does it match in gender, number, and definiteness? Then it's attributive. Well, then if it's not attributive, then it's probably predicative unless there is no noun. Okay. The second flow chart just takes a different tack to it. It starts with a substantive. Is the noun missing? Yep, there's no noun there. Okay, it's a substantive. But however, if there is a noun there, we want to continue. Go to the next one. Question. Does the adjective come before the noun? If it comes before the noun, then it's predicative. But if it comes after the noun, then we need to go to the next question, and that is, does the adjective match the noun in gender, number, or definiteness? If it does, it's attributive. If it doesn't match, and it would have to be in this realm of definiteness, it'll be predicative. Either one of those will work. Use the one that works best for you. So, working through some examples here, we have ha'ish, he, chacham. And so we see that both have the article, so they match in gender. There's no ending here. There's no ending here. It's a man, or the man, rather, the man, the wise one. So the wise man. Okay. Next one, we see that there's a article on ish, ha'ish, but chacham does not have an article. They do not match in definiteness. They do match in gender and number. They're both masculine singular. So since they don't match in definiteness, this is going to be a predicate. Now, do we have a noun? Yes, we have a noun. Ish is there, and so it's not substantive. So this is going to be saying the man is wise. And the next one, we have no article on anashim. We have no article on kachamim. They do both agree in gender. Both are masculine. They both agree in number. They're both plural. You have im endings. So they're both masculine plural. Men wise ones would be an option, or it could be saying men are wise, because the adjective is following. If this was on the front, then we know it had to be predicative. But when it follows, that's where we're going to have to go by context. Ordinarily, we would say wise men, because it's following, the adjective is following the noun. All right. On the next one, we find that the noun does have the article. Anashim, so ha-anashim, the men, that's masculine plural. We have chachamim, the adjective, that is also masculine and plural. So they match in gender and number, but they don't match in definiteness. That means this has to be a predicate. If this one had he on the front, then we'd say the wise men, but it doesn't have he on the front. They don't match in definiteness. So it's saying the men are wise. And also notice that the adjective is coming before the noun. And so that also tells us it's predicate. The men are wise. And then the next one, we have two articles, one on each one. We have ha-anashim, the men, ha-chachamim, the wise ones. The men, the wise ones, so it's going to be the wise men. And then the last one, we just have ha-chachamim. There's no noun, and so that's a substantive. And it does have an article, so it's going to be the wise. It could just be the wise. It could be the wise ones. You could even say the wise men because it has a masculine ending, but men is not really a part there, but it's going to be acting as a noun, the wise ones. All right. Now, just to be fair, that we're not, chauvinistic or something here. We're going to talk about wise women as well. So I didn't go through all the trouble of putting all the little circles in and everything, but I can just circle it here. There's our article. Here's our feminine plural ending. Chacham is in there, so we have ha-chachamot. It's the wise ones, kind of like the last one we had on the previous page, the wise ones, but now we're talking about feminine wise ones. So the wise ones, feminine. So that's substantive. Next line, we have ha isha. Oh my, there we go. Think we're working for a moment there. We do not have an article before the adjective, chachama. We have ha isha, chachama. They match in gender, both are feminine. They match in number, they're both singular. They do not match in definiteness. So even though the adjective is coming after the noun, it's still going to be since they don't match on definiteness, it's going to be a predicate. So it's saying the woman is wise. Okay, next line we have Isha. It's just a woman, not the woman, a woman. And then Chachama, Isha, Chachama. And since the adjective is following the noun, it could go either way. That could be an attribute saying a wise woman, or it could be saying a woman is wise. And in that case, we have to look at context. Next line, we have an article before Nashim, Han-Nashim, and we have Chachamot. We see the feminine plural. Nashim is irregular, even though it looks like masculine plural. The adjective is going to tell you the truth. It's both of these are feminine, both of them are plural. They do not match. On definiteness, there is no article on the front. So this is going to be, and plus the adjective is in front of the noun. So that's going to be predicate, saying the women are wise ones, or they are wise. The women are wise. Okay, then we have Ha-Nashim, we have an article. Ha-Chachamot, we have an article. We have feminine plural. This is still feminine plural, even though Nashim is irregular. They match in gender, number, and definiteness. And the adjective is following the noun. So that's going to be an attribute. That's an attributive. And so it's saying the wise women. And then the one at the bottom, we have article the. We have a singular, feminine singular ending. We do not have a noun anywhere, either before it or after it. So this is a substantive, and it's wise, but this is wise one. It's singular, and we have an article, the wise one, and so we would say the wise woman or the wise one, and just remember that it's referring to somebody feminine. So that's how we can tell how an adjective is functioning. And now we want to look at directional haze. You can read about that on pages 60, 61, and 7.7. We're not going to take a look there, but we're just going to try to summarize what that talks about. The directional hey can be added to the end of the word to indicate the direction or motion towards something. For instance, yam is see. Yama is seaward, which is generally west, because they're talking, when you see that, it's talking about the Great Sea, the Mediterranean Sea. And so Yama would be west or seaward. And that's what I usually do for a directional hey. I'll put the word in there. Or eastward, Kedama. Kedam is east, and you get Kedama, it's eastward. Or it might be the name of a town. And so it'll put the directional hey there. It's just saying that something is going that direction, or that somebody went to that in that direction. That's what a directional hey is for. The ending is the letter hey, and it's also preceded by commas. This circle means it could be any letter. Doesn't matter what letter it is, it's going to have a commas hey after it. Okay. It's always unaccented. That's an important thing to remember. It's always unaccented. If it's accented, it is not a directional hey. The directional hey occurs 1,099 times in the Hebrew Bible, so it is not uncommon, or it is pretty common. So we have El Haaretz, to the land. We have a makef joining the preposition to the land. So to the land, to the land. But you can say the same thing with artsah. It's landward. Um, you do see that if somebody is showing respect to somebody, they come up to somebody and it says they put their off their nose or naphime rather, the two nostrils earthward, and you'd see art saw on that earthward or landward or something like that. Earthward is showing the direction. And notice that the accent art saw, the ah at the end is not accented. The accent is at the beginning of the word here. So the directional hey is the comets hey at the end. There are words that end with comets hey, like Torah. Torah is law, but that Torah it's not Torah, it's Torah. The emphasis is on the last syllable. So that is not a directional hey. Or Gedolah, we looked at that earlier. That's the feminine singular of Gedol, great. Uh, but it's not pronounced with the accent at the beginning or something. Gedolah, since the accent is on the last syllable, that is not a directional hey. So that's something you want to look for. It's not, the directional hey is never accented. And so those are examples of a comets hey ending that are not directional hey. Now, sometimes you'll see a word like susa, and it looks like a dogesh and a hey, and you go, wait a minute, we can't have a dogesh and a hey because a hey is a guttural. You're right. I'm glad that you know that. And that's true. This is actually called a mapeak. A mapeak. It looks just like a dogesh, but it's always indicative of third feminine singular. And so when we say susa, um, it's not a directional hey, and it's saying her horse. This would be, or woodenly, it'd be the horse of her, which means her horse. Mapeak means causing to go out. But like I say, the mapeak, anytime you see a hey, and it looks like it's got that dogesh in it, like right there, that is an indicator of a third feminine singular ending. And we'll get into that more when we get to pronominal suffixes. That's a preview of coming attractions. All right, so we've covered all that. Let's go to the vocabulary on page 63. So in our vocabulary, we've got nouns and we've got adjectives, and then we've got ma'od, which what would that be? Probably be an adverb, I'm guessing. Because it's like very. So notice the first one, noun. It's a noun, kodesh, holy or holiness, something that is holy, kodesh. Notice the accent above the kof, kodesh, kodesh. And the next one is ra'ah, which means evil, but it can also mean calamity. Somebody tried to make an argument with me once about how God creates evil because in the old King James, he was pointing out a verse that said that he creates evil. Well, you have to know that that doesn't always mean evil. It can also mean calamity or disaster. And sometimes God would bring calamity upon a city or something like that. It doesn't mean that God creates sin. So anyway, we have Kodesh and Ra'ah. Those are nouns for evil or wickedness or calamity. And then we get to adjectives. We've already looked at some of these. Gadol, we looked at Gadolah a little bit ago, but it means great. And we have Zakein. We didn't actually use that word, but it had the illustration of an old man. Zakein is old, or it can refer to an elder. Zar is a foreigner. It can be talking about anything foreign or strange. But it can't be talking about a person who's foreigner. Chai means alive. Chacham, we've seen that already too. Wise, it could also be translated as skillful or experienced. Most of the time, I start with wise. Tov, we've looked at that. Tov is good. Yashar is straight or upright. Ma'at is little or few. Then notice Sadiq. We have Sadiq. That's a TS sound on the front, remember? Sadiq. It means righteous. It's an adjective. It could even be referring still to, no, that's right. Sadiq, righteous. We'll just go with that. The next one, that's the one I was thinking of. Kadosh. Kadosh is an adjective meaning something is referring to something as being holy, which is to be set apart, separated. Something that's holy is separated for holy use. I could have my cereal bowl, but if I dedicate, and I could eat my cereal out of it, but if I dedicate my cereal bowl to the Lord, I can't eat cereal out of it anymore because that's common use. And once I've dedicated it, it's set apart, it's holy, it's not for common use anymore. But notice the difference between kadosh here as an adjective and kodesh, the noun. You can see a direct relationship there based on the same root, but one is a noun and the other is an adjective. Katon is small, but it's also used for young. Like when I said that David was the youngest of the sons of Jesse, it's going to say Katon. Well, he probably was smaller also, but even grown men, if one's younger, this still be Katon, the younger one. Karov means near. Rav is great, or maybe many. Rakok is far, or distant. And then here's Ra. If you look at back up the top under nouns, we had Ra'ah. That's the noun. Ra means evil. That's the adjective. Rasha means wicked. And then Ma'od means very or exceedingly. Any questions? Okay. The homework, go ahead and complete exercise 7 regarding adjectives in the workbook. Work on the chapter 7 vocabulary, and then go ahead and read, after you've done those, go ahead and read chapter 8, and we'll be looking at pronouns, Hebrew pronouns. All right. Once again, are there any questions? All right, then we will be done.